Who's in charge today?
Huh?
Who's in charge today? How you doing? I'm in the state of Oregon, Oregon OSHA. Looks like you got a little bit of a shoring problem going on.
That's it. That's what we're installing right now.
Well, he can't be down there.
Okay.
How are you going to get him out?
Showing or what? Jim, just don't hook that thing. Sorry. Watch it.
You want to see why he can't be down there?
What?
That's why he can't be down there.
Okay, still sheets you gotta go in.
Okay, you got to get him out. And I hope you get him out soon.
Hi, my name's Marco Carr. I'll be your host for this training program. I've worked for large and small companies on construction sites like these around the country. I wish I had the time to tell you how often I've been involved in injury and fatality investigations related to excavation safety. What I can tell you is that a lot of what you're going to hear today, whether it's OSHA requirements, company policies, or my recommendations, are based on actual tragic facts. Things like rigging failures, trench collapses, electrocutions happen quite frequently. People die on construction sites every day. A friend of mine lost his brother when a retaining wall collapsed. The vast majority of these injuries and fatalities are preventable, but it takes a great deal of pre-planning, communication, and training to ensure that everybody can go home safely at the end of the day. Did you know that cave-ins are the leading cause of death in excavation work, and that collapses are 18 times more likely to result in death than common construction accidents? Cave-ins aren't the only dangers involved in excavation work, though. Other hazards include water accumulation, the collapse of nearby structures, and hazardous atmospheres produced by toxic gases in the soil. That's why if you ever think that there's a potential danger of a collapse or any other type of hazard, you must tell your supervisor, foreman, or the competent person immediately. I can't stress enough how important it is to speak up. With all these potential hazards looming on a job site, no one's going to get upset if you're being overly cautious. You could be saving someone's life, possibly your own. Most cave-ins occur in trenches 5 to 15 feet deep and occur suddenly with little or no warning. On average, about 1,000 trench collapses occur each year in the United States, and over 95% of injuries occur in trenches without any protective systems. Did you know that only 2 to 3 feet of soil can put enough pressure on your lungs to prevent you from breathing? In as little as 4 to 6 minutes without oxygen, you can sustain considerable brain damage. And within 10 minutes, well, it might just be too late. In fact, the chances of a trapped worker being killed can be as high as 50%. Trench work is serious work and can have serious consequences if it's not done correctly. But it's also important for every worker on site to know and recognize some of the most frequent problems and to communicate them immediately. Water is one factor that can increase the risk of a collapse. Other factors include temperature change, vibrations from heavy equipment. Even the surrounding load, like a spoil pile, can affect the conditions of the excavation. Also, a lot of the soil that we work in has been previously disturbed. Previously disturbed soil is different from soil that's never been excavated. It can contain backfill or other materials that can rapidly break away from native soils. Sometimes there are visible warning signs around the excavation that can be spotted before a cave-in occurs. And if you're aware of these warning signs, your chances of getting out before a collapse increase significantly. Some of these visible signs may include ground settlement or narrow cracks in sidewalls, slopes, or the surface next to the excavation. Flakes, pebbles, or clumps of soil may separate and fall into the excavation, or there may be changes or bulges in the wall slope. If you notice any of these signs, get out of the excavation immediately and get your coworkers out too. Cave-ins are possible, they can happen if you're not careful, but they can be prevented. And let's face it, preventative measures take a lot less time and effort than an emergency retrieval. There are different types of cave-ins that happen in various types of conditions. For instance, a spoil pile slide is probably the most common type of cave-in. It occurs when dirt is piled too close to the edge of a trench. A shear wall collapse occurs most frequently in clay or layered soils. Part or all of one side of the wall begins to crumble into the trench, along with the weight of the spoil pile. The height of the falling soil is added to the weight, generating a great deal of force. An average collapse of 2 to 3 yards of soil can weigh 4,000 to 6,000 pounds, or nearly the weight of a pickup truck. A lip slide may be an indicator of a potentially more hazardous collapse to come. A belly slough often occurs in areas near underground utilities or where running water is present. This type of slide occurs when softer soil weakens under the more stable soil. The collapse can be rapid and usually buries or traps the victim quickly. The resulting overhang makes rescue more dangerous and difficult as well. Heaving and squeezing is a downward pressure created by the weight of surrounding soil or adjacent equipment that causes a bulge in the bottom of the cut. Probably heard that soil falls into 4 types: solid rock and types A, B, and C soil. Let's talk a little bit about what these classifications mean.
Soils can be classified as Type A, Type B, or Type C. Type A soil is the most stable soil in which to excavate. Type C is the least stable soil. It's important to remember that a trench can be cut through more than one type of soil. Let's look at each type of soil. Type A soil is cohesive and has a high unconfined compressive strength, 1.5 tons per square foot or greater. Examples of Type A soil include clay, silty clay, sandy clay, and clay loam. Soil cannot be classified as Type A if it is fissured, if it has been previously disturbed, if it has water seeping through it, or if it is subject to vibration from sources such as heavy traffic or pile drivers. Type B soil is cohesive and has often been cracked or disturbed, with pieces that don't stick together as well as Type A soil. Type B soil has medium, unconfined compressive strength, between 0.5 and 1.5 tons per square foot. Examples of Type B soil include angular gravel, silt, silt loam, and soils that are fissured or near sources of vibration, but could otherwise be Type A. Type C soil is the least stable type of soil. Type C includes granular soils in which particles don't stick together, and cohesive soils with a low unconfined compressive strength, 0.5 tons per square foot or less. Examples of Type C soil include gravel and sand.
Now, there are some inherent problems in classifying soil as anything other than Type C. You have to be careful because sometimes soil is layered. There may be a Type B soil on the surface, but a few feet into the dig there might be a layer of Type C soil. And how frequently do we find water on job sites? These conditions point to classification as Type C. So soil should be treated as if it's Type C unless proven otherwise. One important thing to remember, though, is that you can't bench Type C soils. They just won't hold the bench properly, and they could collapse. Many times, trenches are in narrow places or roadways, so sloping and benching aren't options. In these situations, support systems like shoring or shielding are typically used. There may even be instances where you may have to combine sloping or benching with a support system. Shoring structures are typically made of metal or wood. They're designed to support the sides of a trench and prevent soil from caving in. Other types of shoring may include aluminum hydraulic systems, driven interlocking sheeting, soldier piles and lagging, pneumatic shoring, and screw jacks. Shielding structures, or trench boxes as they're often referred to, are placed inside trenches or excavations and are strong enough to protect workers in the event of a cave-in, so long as the workers are within the confines of the box. Whether you use shoring or shielding, it won't protect you if you aren't inside it. 2 plumbers who had been working in a trench were being hoisted to street level in the bucket of an excavator. As the excavator operator started to swing, the bucket jerked, causing one employee to fall approximately 14 feet. The employee struck his head on the pipe in the trench, causing a fatal injury. When working in a trench, you can't just jump into it and try to find a way to climb out later. There has to be a safe means of entry and exit for workers, like a ladder, stairway, ramp, or other safe means. You must be able to exit a trench quickly and within 25 feet of where you're working. It's also a good idea to make sure that there's at least one ladder per trench box so workers don't have to climb over or through spreaders to get out. Remember that you're not the only one working on the site. There may be other workers operating equipment or machinery, and they may not always see you. Be sure to make eye contact with the operator of any type of heavy equipment to let them know that you're there. And avoid the sweep, reach, dump, or path of any machinery or equipment too. Likewise, don't stand under any loads handled by lifting or digging equipment, or near any vehicle being loaded or unloaded. Some areas may also require guardrails or tie-off on equipment for service personnel. All wells, pits, shafts, and remote excavations must be barricaded or covered and clearly marked so that workers don't fall in, and workers and materials should stay as far from the edge of the excavation as possible. Remember that many folks can be curious, especially kids. These barriers can help protect them as well. To prevent a spoil pile slide or possible trench collapse, scale the face of the excavation to remove any loose material and set up barricades to contain anything that might fall. Try to place spoil piles so that rainwater is diverted away from the excavation. And it's important to remember to keep everything, spoil, materials, and equipment at least 2 feet from the edge of the excavation. If there are workers that are higher on the slope of an excavation than other workers, workers on the lower level must be protected from falling, rolling, or sliding material or equipment. If you can't safely store the spoil on site, move it to a temporary site. Water accumulation in an excavation also makes for a dangerous situation for a number of reasons. Water softens the soil, which can lead to a cave-in, and makes getting out of an excavation in an emergency even more difficult for workers. Water accumulation in an excavation also creates electrical and drowning hazards. You should never work in an excavation with standing water or where water is accumulating unless adequate protections have been taken. Protections against water accumulation include installing special support or shield systems, using safety harnesses and lifelines, or removing the water with pumping equipment. Your site's competent person must monitor procedures against water accumulation to make sure that they're effective. Workers are not permitted in any excavation below the base or footing of a foundation or a retaining wall that's likely to be a danger to them. The only exceptions are when a support system, like shoring or shielding, is installed, or when the excavation is performed in stable rock, or when a registered professional engineer has determined that the excavation activity will not affect the structure nor pose a threat to the workers.
People should follow the regulations and laws that are required of them, such as using a trench box when it's required. If the trench does get deep enough that it requires to be engineered, then they should have an engineer do it. If they follow most of the regulations, then they really shouldn't have a need for our team to respond, which is the way we would rather see it.
Sometimes you can stop an emergency before it even occurs. When in doubt, get out. If you see anything about the excavation that looks unsafe or dangerous, get yourself and your coworkers to a safe place as quickly as possible. Notify your competent person and let him or her know of your concerns. We're trained to deal with these types of situations and can determine the next steps to take to ensure your safety. Remember, working smarter means working safer, and that makes everybody's job a lot easier.
The most iconic image of any construction worker is the most important piece of safety equipment, the hard hat. The hard hat was developed in 1919 for mine workers who needed more protection from falling objects than the normal cap they had been wearing. Now more than 20 million hard-working Americans wear hard hats on a daily basis. Yearly, about 120,000 job-related head injuries occur, and about 1,500 of them are fatal. Worn properly, a hard hat provides 2 types of protection. The hard thermoplastic shell resists penetrations by sharp objects to the head. The suspension system inside of the shell lessens the consequences of a localized blow by distributing the force over a broader area. But for hard hats to be effective, they must be worn properly and also inspected on a regular basis. Hard hats should sit snugly and tight on your head to be effective. Also, if your hard hat has any cracks, gouges, or other signs of damage, it must be replaced immediately. It goes without saying that on our Tri-North job sites, hard hats must be worn at all times with no exceptions. Even if you feel you are safe from any danger, you are not. A hard hat can be the difference between life and death on a job site. Safety is one of the most important parts of successful projects, and we want each person who visits our job sites to leave in the same condition as when they arrived. Thank you for watching, and remember to always be safe and build smart.